Hey everyone, Linus here. Let's talk RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory. Think of it like your computer's super fast workspace. It's way faster than your hard drive or SSD, which is where you store your files long term. RAM is all about speed. It lets your computer quickly access the files and programs you're currently using. Imagine trying to edit a video directly off your hard drive. It would be super slow and laggy. RAM solves that problem. It loads up the stuff you need right now so your CPU, the brain of your computer, can access it instantly. More RAM means you can have more programs, browser tabs, and files open at once without your computer slowing to a crawl. So yeah, RAM is pretty important. In the next section, we'll dive into what happens to your RAM when you first hit that power button. Stay tuned. Alright, so you've just pressed the power button on your computer. What happens next? Your computer needs to boot up, and guess what? RAM plays a key role. When you turn on your computer, the first thing it does is load a small program called the BIOS, Basic Input-Output System. This program lives on a special chip on your motherboard. The BIOS is responsible for doing a quick hardware check, making sure everything is hunky-dory. Initial checks, it needs to find your operating system like Windows or macOS. It looks for it on your storage drive, your hard drive or SSD. Once it finds the operating system, it starts loading essential parts. Now remember, RAM is much faster than your storage drive. Loading the operating system into RAM allows it to run much smoother and faster. This is why computers with more RAM tend to boot up quicker. But the fun doesn't stop there. Once the operating system is loaded, RAM has a lot more work to do. We'll explore that in the next section. Okay, so your computer is booted up and RAM is already hard at work. But how does it actually get the data it needs from your storage drive? It's like a super fast courier service, constantly moving data back and forth. When you open a program, game, or file, your computer needs to access the data for that specific thing. This data is stored on your hard drive or SSD. But remember, your CPU, the brain of your computer, works much faster with RAM. So what happens is this. Your computer copies the data from your storage drive into RAM. This process is called fetching. Once the data is in RAM, your CPU can access it much faster, making everything run smoothly. Think of it like this. Your storage drive is like a giant library, and RAM is like your desk. When you need to work on a specific book, data, you bring it from the library storage to your desk, RAM, so you can access it quickly and easily. But RAM isn't just a one-way street. It also handles sending data back to your storage drive when you save a file or make changes to a document. It's a constant back and forth, ensuring that you can access and work with your data efficiently. Now let's talk about how the CPU and RAM talk to each other to make all this magic happen. Stay tuned for the next section where we'll dive into that. We've talked about how RAM is like your computer's super-fast workspace. We've also covered how data travels from storage to RAM. Now let's talk about how the CPU, the brain of your computer, communicates with RAM. The CPU and RAM are in constant communication, exchanging data back and forth at lightning speeds. They do this through a special highway system called the bus. Think of it like a data superhighway with multiple lanes. There are two main types of lanes on this highway: the address bus and the data bus. The address bus is used by the CPU to tell the RAM where to find the specific data it needs. Imagine it like giving an address to your friend's house. Once the address is sent, the data bus comes into play. This is the lane where the actual data travels between the CPU and RAM. It's like your friend sending you a package, data, after you've given them your address. This process of sending and receiving data happens constantly as you use your computer. Whether you're browsing the web, editing a document, or playing a game, the CPU and RAM are working together seamlessly to ensure that you have a smooth and responsive computing experience. And that, my friends, is how the CPU and RAM, the dynamic duo of your computer, work together to make all the magic happen.